EB Springs. This is the Blowing Rock Board of Adjustment. We've got Jerry Starnes here on my left, Lee Rockamora here on my left, Sarah Murphy here on my right, and Stephen Schiller here on my right. 5-member board. And we're getting ready to have 2 variance hearings. We've got a little bit of business to cover before we do that. We met August 25th, 2022, and we did 2 variance hearings then. And our nice clerk, Ms. Taylor Miller, wrote up the minutes and distributed those. Did all the board members get a copy of the finalized minutes for Thursday, August 25th, 2022?
This is draft.
The initial one did too. This is the revised. Everyone got the revised?
Yeah.
Very good. Let's talk about the first hearing. First of all, the Franson hearing, number 2022-03. Does any board member see anything that needs to be corrected or added or fixed in the minutes for Ben Franson hearing?
I have 2 minor edits.
Okay, could you point out where
Yeah.
they're located?
On page 3, the second to last paragraph, second sentence that ends in could possibly being staying, it should be possibly be staying in the short-term rental.
Sure. Millie, you see that?
And then the other one is page 4, second paragraph, 5th line down, and his neighbors, well, neighbors' use. I didn't know if that was several neighbors and no apostrophe.
Tell us which paragraph that is again.
It's the second paragraph on page 4, and it's the 5th line that says, and his neighbor's use.
Third one.
Oh,
So I don't know,
Oh, I see. I see what you're saying.
so use was left out, is what you're saying? Use had been left out.
well, no, the neighbors, I don't know if that should have an apostrophe,
Oh,
but maybe it should now that I think about it. Yeah, English wasn't my,
Yeah,
So you're saying singular or plural possessive, which is
where you gonna put the
apostrophe,
Never.
like,
one neighbor or an apostrophe after the S,
or it could be
depending on
neighbors.
how many.
Apostrophe.
Yeah.
Okay, are you amending, are you
Well,
deciding it's okay the way it is?
so neighbors should be apostrophe after the S, because it's several neighbors.
Okay, all right, Ms. Miller, you good there? All right. Any other additions, amendments from anybody? All right, make a motion that we accept the minutes of the Ben Franson variance hearing 2022-03. Is there a second?
I second that one.
Second, and all in favor of accepting those minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. So we'll turn to the other hearing we did that day. Here we go. Case number 2022-04, Mr. Keith Swider on behalf of David and Shirley Moreland. Does any board member have any changes or additions to make to those minutes? Hearing none, I make a motion that we accept the minutes for the Moreland variance hearing number 2022-04. All those in favor of accepting the minutes as written, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's, unanimous. So we're taking care of minutes. Is there any business, old or new, that any board member would like to bring up? Any procedures you'd like to see us adopt or change, or any questions or problems? Any board member have any business of any? Neither do I. So let's move on to the first variance hearing for this evening. And this would be Mr. Raymond Linker. Mr. Linker, are you here? Here's Mr. Linker. And your case is application number 2022-05. Mr. Linker, the minutes, let's cover some sort of housekeeping things before we start your hearing. The minutes are going to be kept by a town employee, Ms. Taylor Miller, and she actually works for the Zoning and Inspections Department. Do you have any objection to her being our clerk and keeping the minutes? And Mr. Johnson, do you have any objection to her keeping the minutes? Okay. In the last few years, we've had a couple of cases of ours appealed to the Superior Court down in Boone, and one of the judges in one of those cases said he was unhappy that we didn't, at the beginning of the hearing, state what procedures we were going to follow. Said, by golly, we're going to state that from now on. This hearing is a quasi-judicial hearing. It is conducted according to the rules and laws pertaining to quasi-judicial hearings. It will have all of the essential elements of a fair trial. Parties will have the opportunity to give evidence, cross-examine witnesses, inspect documents, and testimony shall be under oath. The board's findings will be based upon substantial material and competent evidence. Now, before we start, does any board member have any conflicts of interest, any business or family relationship with any of the parties in this case?
No.
Does any board member know of any bias they had such that they should not, in fairness, participate in this case? Okay. We're not allowed to discuss this case ex parte outside of this hearing with anybody. If somebody came up and started talking to us, we can't stop that. We stop that, but we can't unring the bell that they did approach us. We just need to make everybody aware of that now. Did anybody have any ex parte conversation with anyone before this hearing, or have anybody approach them and attempt to have such a conversation? And all board members say that they did not, including myself. We are allowed to go by the property in question and take a look at it. Of course, we can't stop and discuss it with anyone, but we're allowed to go by it, drive by it, walk by it, go by it, and see it. Did any board member go by the Linker property in question? And all board members, including myself, say yes, they did go by it. And I'm assuming no one had any conversations. If anyone did have any ex parte conversations out there, let us know now. Now, is there anyone in this room or out in Zoom watching this hearing that feels like they are entitled to be a party to this case? Meaning they had standing to come into this case and participate and question witnesses and be fully involved in the case. Does anybody out there feel like they have standing to be a party? And I hear none. So the parties to this case will be Mr. Linker and the town of Blowing Rock, represented by Zoning and Inspection Representative Brian Johnson. Before we start the Linker case, Mr. Johnson, did anyone contact you and tell you they wanted to be a witness by way of Zoom or telephone? Not on this case, okay. All right, let's go ahead and swear all the witnesses for the Linker case. Anyone that's going to speak to us on the Linker case, please listen to what Ms. Miller has to say to you.
We need you. Come on, we need to swear in.
Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you shall give to the body in this matter being heard shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Mr. Linker, the way we handle these is we start out with Mr. Johnson, and he presents the staff report, and that includes your application and his write-up of the case as he understands it. He basically tells us, we start with him, and he tells us what he knows about this application. After he has spoken to us, then you'll have the opportunity to speak to us. And you'll have the opportunity to ask him questions about anything he has presented to us. But before we hear from him, let me ask all the board members if they have received the staff report on the Raymond Linker application. Everybody
Yes.
get there?
Yeah.
And Mr. Linker, did you get a copy of that? The staff report? Very good. All right, Mr. Johnson, you want to go ahead and tell us about the staff report?
First case we've got, variance 2022-05. Mr. Raymond Linker, location is 131 New River Drive. It's, zoning on the property is 15 single family. Not to be confused, we do have a New River Lake street address, so to make sure we're on New River Drive. Mr. Linker is requesting a street setback variance of 20 feet from the applicable 30-foot required street setback to construct a garage, enclosed garage. The closest point of the proposed garage will be 10 feet from the pavement edge. Property is located at 131 New River Drive. It's further identified by Watauga County PIN number 2817-25-2537-000. And again, it's zoned R15. A little bit of background. The request is for 20 feet encroachment into the 30-foot setback. The proposed garage will be 20 foot by 20 foot. And again, the closest point of that is 10 feet from the edge of the pavement, which is the right of way along New River Drive. For your information, an administrative waiver could be utilized in this situation. Based on topography, there is some topography issues with their property there. Staff could provide an administrative waiver up to 5 feet to reduce that 30 down to a 25. But in this situation, it still wasn't adequate for what they were needing for the garage.
And just to make sure that we're all clear on what an administrative waiver is, you're saying that legally by town ordinance, you could, out of the kindness of your heart, give him 5.
Staff has flexibility per the ordinance requirements to provide that administrative.
Thank you. I'm sorry. There's no-
No, you're fine.
Maybe needs to ask about the this, put in the paper.
Yeah, I'm going to.
Okay.
Just a little bit more information. Like I said, he's needing additional relief above that, what staff could give him, requesting the 20 foot. Location of the proposed garage, it will be located on the existing drive as you saw as you were out. There is a site plan within this, building plans and photos. And at the appropriate time, Mr. Chairman, I do have two additional documents that Mr. and Ms. Linker sent to me that may help you see the site plan better. And there's also a building elevation of the proposed garage, if you would like to take that as.
I think we would love to see it. Do you want him to introduce them or do you want to introduce them, Mr. Lincoln? These,
I have copies of them, but
Hey, guys,
yes.
Sam Grayson's emailed us and the peers, and I have them on my phone right here, but send them to Brian, and so you all kind of see.
I don't want to steal your glory. Do you want him to go ahead and show it to us or you want to wait and do it? Okay. But will you go through everything you have, all the pictures and everything on the big board?
I can present these and yes, I'll go through those in the staff report. I also have the main site plan and this elevation pulled up on the big screen if we need to take a look at that as well. The mic.
These are tough. Thank you. That's why you use. That's good.
The road is a little clearer on this one. Again, like the-
You got them. You got them. This is a big hill. You can see this, the speed. There's the notices. I can't remember anything. He's done. Yeah, you know, but
Look at Mr. Greason's daughter sketch and blueprint. What's the overall height at the highest point of the roof? Does anyone know?
I think the other had a speaker.
It may not be good.
I don't think it's provided on the plan here that we have.
Well, when Mr. Linker comes up, we'll ask him if basically it's that the height of the garage roof is supposed to match the house roof. The blow up of the lot plan, I guess you'd call it, the Linker Cottage New River Drive. This is much easier to see. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
I've got the whole screen now.
So the existing stairway up, that's going to stay? And the garage will go like right up to that? Well, down from the house to the garage.
And they have to be really big, like,
Mr. Johnson, one of the things we have to consider in a variance where somebody's building something closer to the roadway than the letter of the law allows is impeding view of traffic getting into sight lines. I assume you've been out on this property, you're familiar with the property?
Yes, sir.
If this garage is built as wanted, did you see where it would be blocking one motorist's view of another motorist and presenting a hazard as far as the view of traffic?
No, sir, I don't think so.
Can you go ahead and take us through the pictures?
Yeah.
That the staff report.
You'll also have the application in your packet as well. The third page is an overhead aerial showing Mr. and Mrs. Linker's home, where it's located on the property. New River Drive is above the house, and then you have Country Club Lane below. So the properties do have two street setbacks on them as it sits. The next page is another site plan. That was a smaller site plan that was a little bit blurry. Hope you can see it better with this one.
You have that, can you put that on the overhead?
You can see this one, yeah, it's the same.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
And the the proposed garage is clear on it. Also included in the packet has the applicable zoning ordinance sections. Required R15 building setback from the street 30 feet, side setbacks, which the sides are not applicable where the garage is proposed. The next page is photos, the proposed location of the garage. The top picture, you're looking towards the upper end of the driveway, looking down at the house. And then I think that second photo is probably looking on top of the roof, get down to the entrance of the house.
Can you put up the photo, the overhead aerial photo?
Yeah. That's good.
The lot it's an unusual shape. It's like arrowhead. Do the Linkers own all of what's in the red boundary on the hard copy we received?
Yes, sir.
Interesting shape.
Excluding topography, is there space on this property for this? If you exclude topography concerns, do you have space if this structure were to be built on this property within the setbacks?
Where they are proposing the garage is the flatter location. Now, for the ordinance, the front setback is 30 feet.
Right, but if you bring it into the setbacks, I'm saying excluding topographical concerns, is there room for this structure to be built on this property?
Sure. Now, I will let you know that the bottom setback, which don't play into this, there is a provision in the ordinance that a secondary street can have a 20-foot setback.
Right.
So it won't encroach quite as far.
Okay.
Mr. Linker, do you have any questions of Mr. Johnson?
Where the existing driveway is, complete slope.
Okay, you get to make your presentation in a minute. We'll probably still be up there. Any board member have any questions of Mr. Jones? I have a few. Let's talk about notices, Mr. Johnson. Did you mail notices to the Linkers, notices of this hearing?
Yes, sir.
And they are also the owner of the property. They're the applicant and the owner.
Yes, sir.
And did you send notices of this hearing and what the Linkers are proposing to do to the owners of all parcels of land abutting this parcel of land?
We sent notices to folks within 150 feet of the parcel.
Okay, all right. Do you recall how many notices you sent?
There were a total of 15 notices sent.
And don't tell us what anyone said, that would be hearsay, but tell us if you did hear from anybody.
We did have one lady stop by our office to inquire about the project.
Okay. And she was one of the people that got a note.
Yes.
She was one of the 50. And did you post a prominent notice at the hearing site,
Yes.
a sign? So would you say you did all required notices of this hearing and of this application? Having been out on the property and seen the site, seen the location where they propose to build this garage, would you say building this garage would or would not impair emergency vehicles such as fire trucks and ambulance? And would you say what they're proposing to do, building this garage, would it create a fire hazard in any way? And if they built this garage, do you think it would block or impede visibility on any street or highway? And I think you'd answer that. Do you know of anything that this garage, any aspect of public health or safety that would be impaired by this garage if it was built as proposed? Okay. Mr. Lincoln, do you have any more questions? Mr. Johnson, board members, any more questions? Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Will be required to meet any other ordinance requirements, any building code requirements.
All right. Mr. Lincoln, you want to talk to her? Or is this Miss? Tell us your name.
NOLA,
Lola?
New Orleans, Louisiana, NOLA. That's the only way to get it.
Lola Lincoln.
NOLA, NOLA. It's a family name, the last,
But you are a linker.
I am a linker,
Mrs. Linker, I said.
53 years worth.
Okay. All right, just want to get the name straight.
All right, well, Bob, I was going to tell you my name, but I don't think I need to do that now. But my husband and Ron became residents of Bowling Rock when we bought our cottage last December at 131 New River. And I want to say to you guys, we're really excited to be a part of this community. We've already joined the civic organization and also Brom, and have met a lot of really, really nice people. We have a small condominium in Charlotte where our son lives, which we will stay in to go visit him and for doctor's appointments and, stuff like that. But we plan to spend most of our time in Bowling Rock because we think it's a nice place to be. We didn't live in the cottage last winter because we were doing a lot of renovation and painting, but we were there frequently to oversee the work. And while we were visiting and seeing everything going on, we saw that the climate in the wintertime is very different here from what we're used to. And so we started talking about the need to have a garage on the property. So that's how this all got started. We reached out to our longtime personal friend, Sam Greason, who's the architect, on how to proceed. We have known Sam over 40 years. I worked with his wife in Charlotte. He's a great guy. He has designed many projects at Bowling Rock, as you all probably know, so he knows the topography of the lots and the setback restrictions. He looked very closely at our survey and at our property and studied the topography on it a lot. What we have presented is his proposed site plan, and as well as the plans for the proposed garage. It will be finished to match the existing cottage, painted brown, white trim, roof similar color, and we will verify the pitch. I'm not sure on that. It is the garage would not be very visible from either New River Drive or Country Club Drive if you have driven by because of the slope of the lot. of the driveway. And it will also be set back from the front of the cottage. It will not be level with the cottage once it is built. Our cottage is already subject to a variance because of the steeply sloping lot topography. The garage would also need to be a variance to meet the street setback. This is really what we're proposing. We appreciate your time for listening to us, and feel free to ask us any questions, and we're happy to answer anything that you might need to know. But I think what Sammy has, forgive me for calling him that, but I can't call him Sam. But we feel like he has done a good job of trying to meet our needs. It's a very small garage, 20 by 20. And he did leave a really nice setback between the garage and the retaining wall, in case, because y'all probably saw that, they have to secure it. So he took many, many things into consideration when doing this. But we'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Start with Mr. Johnson. Do you have any questions? Any board member have any questions for Ms. Lincoln?
Did Mr. Greason, or did y'all look at, since Mr. Jonathan was talking about that they actually do have room,
To build,
the setbacks, did you look at the cost of current space versus putting it within the allowed,
we haven't had seen numbers, but it would, to go, if when you drive down the driveway to go towards Country Club Drive, a huge foundation would have to be built to support the garage. And we have had one contractor look at the plans we have now, and he said if there's any way to do it, it would be more structurally sound and everything to do it on the driveway. What we understand he would do is take out the asphalt that's there and build footings for the garage, and then put pavement, around it for access. But we did look at that. But if you drove down the driveway and saw that slope, it would double the cost, is basically what they said. So,
thank you.
and they did that basically what he said. Yeah.
Ms. Lincoln, let me ask you a few questions. When did you buy the house?
On December 2021, December 22nd, 2021.
Okay. Do you know when it was built?
Oh, shoot, in the 80s? I should have brought that with me, but my gut feeling is around 83. The people we bought from were building around the corner. And so that's why it went on the market, but I apologize, I don't know the exact date. And I'm a realtor, I should know.
And you mentioned if you built it more in the middle of the lot, the footings would be tell me about that again.
Okay, what the deal is, you have to live there like we do to visualize this. We have 2 decks off the back, and it's almost impossible to walk down that hill without a hiking stick. That's how steep it is. Seriously, because we tried. And we looked at even putting one down to enter from Country Club Drive, but then you had to walk up the hill to get to the house. So then the only other choice would be at the end of the driveway to put a structure, turn towards Country Club Drive. But once again, you have that dramatically steep slope that would be difficult to even build a foundation on, is what we've been told. So that's why we took this approach. And we also took, we consider Sammy a really good resource because he knows Blowing Rock property, and he was trying to tell us what he thought would work. And also aesthetically, because the way he drew it, I think is very attractive, and, painted the color of the house and everything. I think it would be a nice addition. But, and I know if you did go down our street there, did you notice there are only 3 houses? And the house on the hill is Bill Mollis. We're in the back of him, and they have become good friends. And we've talked to everybody that can see us, and Nancy and Pat Grantham at the bottom of the hill. And so we tried to do due diligence on our end before we even started on this.
Tell me about the height of the garage in relation to the house.
It will be, where is that? I have to look at my PDF. Oh, let me see. So, it depends on how tall the footings are. I'm trying to think. It would be halfway up the house, I would guess. In other words, you know, the house, we have a top floor, I mean, a main floor and a lower level where that lower door you can see is that connects to the garage. And so with the garage is 20 by 20, I'd have to verify with Sammy. He's in Italy, otherwise he would be here. Lucky guy. But to verify the height, but my guess is it would come up above the first floor and I don't know how long is the retaining wall? 10 feet?
Let's see if we can find you a copy of these pictures. Mr. Johnson, you got one handy? A copy of that? Can you pass it down? Brian, can you grab that? There. The top picture shows the house, side of the house. At its highest point, where on the side of the house do you think
The garage would be.
the highest point of the garage, the roof?
Window on the first floor?
Yeah.
That's my guess. No higher than that. So it really would not, based on what they're telling us, it would not go up very far above the retaining. You know, you would see the roof, but you probably wouldn't see much of the structure from the street.
Okay, fair to say that the top of the garage at its highest point wouldn't be any higher than the floor for the second floor of your house?
Yeah, that's what I would guess. We've got 8-foot ceilings in the house. And so, and a stairwell, you know, going up. So I don't know how many feet that is. But it's probably- I think we're talking about this.
And you said the roof of the garage would probably be the only thing higher than the retaining wall, the adjacent retaining wall.
It's only a 20 by 20 garage, no, storage space.
Right.
Well, it's just a, roof way to go.
Okay, all right, give me my picture then.
Cheryl, rough scale on 16 to 18.
That would make sense. What is this for?
Six 12, but it's 10 feet low.
Okay, anyone have any questions, any more questions of anybody? Sure.
So that,
Yeah.
I just would like the applicants to be aware they're building a garage on the flat part of the driveway. I don't think there's any issue, but there's going to be an incline, steeper incline in that driveway. But then,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think there's anything in the ordinance that because it's an existing driveway,
Yeah,
but it's still, I
they're gonna do some, what did you call it?
think that we can just don't know how it was.
Yeah, exactly. But what we were told is they would take up the asphalt, you know, for the footprint and build footings and build a garage and then put some sidewalks back in.
Okay, okay.
One more question. Are you going to have to build a foundation outside of the footprint of your current driveway?
No,
So you're not actually making it wider, moving?
no, in other words, it's the way Sammy drew it, it's kind of in the center of the driveway. Is that what you're asking me?
Well, I mean, the question is the outside wall.
No.
It's going to be on the steep part. Is that, are you going to have to build a foundations down further on the slope than where the?
No, nothing on the slope. I think. Now, I know that because we have had a contractor.
One thing, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
The applicant is required to have the eaves within this. So any proposed eaves outside of the foundation required to be within this measure.
Within the 20 by 20. Were you aware of that?
Unless it's pulled back.
You understand that?
A roof has an overhang. They don't come to the walls and stop. So you got a little problem there.
They don't show the overhang, do they? Well,
I don't think it was.
It's a good word.
It's a good one.
So structure itself.
So you're saying that you're. The footprint, yeah, there's not a problem. There is space to do that. We would, be able to do that, yes. Shift it to the left, that's what you're saying.
Be sure you know what you're saying. If the roof overhangs 2 feet and you're seeking a variance, 20-foot variance, you're gonna have to make the garage interior 8 feet.
Or shift it to the left.
Or shift it to the
Get
left.
the whole garage. As you go down the driveway, you shift it a little to the left, and then the overhang on the right side of it would then be 10 feet from the street.
If you shift the whole.
Yeah, but if you do that 2 feet, does that still give you enough room without having to go into building a foundation? Another foundation outside of the,
So there's a little bit of, we've got a tree around this area.
You have to take that nice tree. Were you gonna leave the tree there?
No, tree station.
It was gonna come out and.
Yes. Shift it out.
yeah, maybe on the side.
I didn't want to bring this up at the 9th hour because on site plans, sometimes you have stickler lines on the outside and sometimes actually things.
Here,
So I think the adjustment that could be made here with the footprint itself to get them within that.
This gentleman just said this should.
Okay.
Bring your attention.
If we grant your variance, you're gonna have to live with it.
Excuse me?
If we grant your variance, you're gonna have to live with the numbers that are in here.
She knows.
We have to look.
If we grant your variance, you're gonna have to live with it. So I wanna make, we all wanna make sure you know what you're doing.
That we only can. We need to see.
I'm curious if you still. If that's 10 feet. If you go to 14, look right there. That's over 15. It's gonna.
They say that needs to be.
Cheap.
So we either have to reduce this.
And you actually move it next to the house, shift it. So actually moves. Yeah. All right, it's, Mr. Limper, you can sit down.
no,
Thank you.
we have,
Oh, you have a question for him?
No.
Okay. I forgot to, ask Brian Johnson if, he would please put the staff report into the record. Mr. Johnson, would you do that?
Yes.
Okay, it is done. Including the 2 new, drawings that we received from the Lincoln Center. Very good. All right. Yeah.
We don't want to apply the situation now. All the structure has to be within what you're requesting the variance for. We can't increase the request. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chairman, that to be advertised. Sure. Right.
If they move.
If they're requesting more variance.
So
Oh, yeah.
22 instead of 20.
Oh, yeah. If we grant it, we need to put a condition in that they will be allowed to move the structure itself further from the street. So they don't have to come back to that, and that doesn't come back to.
Yeah, I mean, there's no issue. I think they can meet it with the site. I just want to bring it to the attention that we didn't have a situation when you went the footprint. That was probably an oversight on my fault, but sometimes those lines are thicker. Sometimes they include the eave, sometimes they include the footprint. I just want to make sure it was out there.
All right. Okay, all right, instead of closing the evidentiary hearing at this point, since during the recitation of the facts, we always come up with one more question and have to
Can we reach the point where we can ask a question on this?
Sure.
It looks, go to Sammy's drawing with the garage. It looks like he's drawn a foundation on it. In other words, the driveway level is up here and he's drawn a foundation. Yeah. Go down to the bottom of that structure. Keep going. Okay. We all understand the driveway is at the 2 feet down from that window. Sammy's drawn a skirt on that, a foundation.
Is that the question again?
All right. Where he says stuck over. Right. In other words, he's assumed he's going to have 2 to 4 feet of a cinder block or some kind of foundation there.
Right.
Backfill this. All right.
You gotta have some kind of footings.
Yeah, I'm just trying to clarify. So if you have a question on that.
And that could be plus or minus depending on the topography. It could be a little bit more foundation.
I think the suspicion of staff really turns out to be, if you go back to the survey that has the garage on it. Okay, let's establish this. It looks like Sandy's drawn a skirt on the bottom. He's going to have to build some kind of foundation there.
Right.
And we agree with the concept that if you move it very far, you're going to be 5 feet tall instead of 3.
Potentially, yes.
Go to this. Go up there where the corner of the garage is 10 feet from the street. The way you've drawn it. Right?
Yep.
I'll just make sure we're all talking about the same thing. The most northern corner of that corner. As it's drawn, we're saying that's 10 feet from the property line. Yeah. Are we on the same page?
Yeah.
And,
It's 10 feet from the retaining.
well,
That's 10 feet.
let's just get this right.
3 feet from the retaining wall, according to this.
From the corner of the garage.
And the corner of the garage. And here. At the staff level for us, if they were 15 feet, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about this, right?
Yeah, I mean, the only, we could grant them up to 25 foot.
Say that again.
We could possibly grant them to a 25-foot setback, which go down to a 25-foot setback. That's based on topography. It's based on the survey and provide laws.
So you could,
For every 2 feet of topography, based on 30 feet into the property, you can reduce the setback by 1 foot for a max of 5 foot. So we can give up to, or how you want to set it, down to 25 feet. So based on 25 foot, what they're proposing would still be.
25 would be the middle of that garage as it's drawn.
Correct.
And the foundation that she was correctly saying would be really steep if you did that. This little skirt he's drawn on here that says stucco over. That's going to wind up being 10 feet tall.
Could potentially based on topography there.
I don't think the contractor, but he was saying, talking about building, when you put it, he didn't say anything.
Yeah.
Done the same thing.
Yeah, you'll have footings and a foundation. Yes.
Are we on the same page?
I've got it.
In other words,
we're going to approve or not approve this thing at 10 feet from the street, kind of just thing there. There's no compromise to 15 or 20, 25 or something. Because of the retaining wall on the bottom side would be so tall. So I'm not trying to engineer this, I'm just saying.
But that's their problem, right?
Yeah, it is. You know,
My understanding.
we're either faced with saying we like what we see, or we take. I understand their needs. You live here in town year round and you want to go. Let me shut up. Somebody else ask the question.
Well, I think the rules allow the applicant to amend his application during the hearing. And I think we've ended up that you would like the leeway that if necessary, you're going to shift the whole structure away from the street a little bit to be in compliance. Is that where we are? Is that your understanding? Because of the overhang.
Yes.
Well, you want approval, if necessary, to shift the whole thing. And I think that needs to be part of your application. So to keep this businesslike, are you amending your application such that you would like permission, if it becomes necessary, to shift the structure from where you have proposed it a little further away from the street? Do you want to amend your application? Okay, and Ms. Miller is going to make sure that's in the minute, that you amended your application to allow you, if necessary, to shift the garage structure itself further away from the street. Okay.
Is this big pine tree there currently?
So that is another difficult decision. There is a little bit of a risk there because the trees that can be replaced instead of getting to.
Well, if you do move the garage closer to the house, it increases the distance of that northernmost point from the street. In other words, if you move it a couple of feet this way, it's going to be another maybe 1 foot further away. But that encroaches on the stairs.
And the windows on the house.
But is that door that goes into the house there, does that go into a room? Does it go into a hallway? Is that going to be? Okay. So when you come out of your garage to go into the house, how are you going to go into your house?
There's a drawing, there's a door in the garage, and there is space there, over the decking to get into the house.
So you go up the deck to get into your house?
Look at this picture, there's a 6 or 7 inch bed.
Platform there.
Right.
Foundation, just it's in breeze to get into the house. We will not take away the decking.
But I'm questioning, are you entering on the basement, the lower level, or are you entering?
But we have the door on the street. Well, we could.
So you actually have a way to get, say, what are you suggesting, if you move the garage closer to the house, you reduce your intrusion into the setback, and you also have a way to get into the house from your garage.
I think there's a way. Sammy can figure something, but I think, what I'm understanding, we need that this.
My question is, do you have a way to get into the house on the first level, on the lower level?
Yeah, well, actually, there's a gap too, once you get into the house.
Right, but if you butted the garage to the house, could you enter the house?
We would want to.
Yes.
Do you find there's where the areas of this cause this power in church on poetry and running?
It reduces the intrusion. It's a big risk.
Yes, go ahead.
You guys, it's one of the case of things that. So,
Sure, go ahead.
Kevin Rothrock, Plan Director. So, you can evaluate the variance based on what their needs are. And does it meet the findings? Does it meet the criteria? I don't think you can dictate how they're going to build their house.
Right.
Building code dictates that. There's some difficulty in putting this garage flat flush against the house in maneuverability and construction techniques and methods. I don't know that they really need to amend their application. It's fine that they did. But if you grant a variance for what they requested, if they need to move the house to accommodate the overhang, they just have to move the garage, move the garage. They just have to move. If they want to request, hey, we want to encroach, or we want to go closer to the street to accommodate the overhang that we did not mention, then they do need to amend the application. It needs to be re-advertised and start over. I think they have the flexibility to move off whatever variance that you grant, if you do, and then accommodate the site. If they have to have a 6-foot foundation wall to accommodate what they're wanting to build with that garage, that's just what they have. But I don't think that you can dictate how they access their house. Just one clarification.
But also, Kevin, I think it's a point for discussion that if they did move it, that would reduce the setback variance.
This would compromise what they're trying to do with their house, as far as I understand, to move it towards the house. Yes, the wood come off the street, but they're better off than moving this increased block foundation than it is to compromise what they're trying to do, breezeway and function. I don't think that you have the option to tell them what they've done. They have options that are builder can address it, but it would be better off. There's an issue, you don't have a comfort level of issuing a setback with their access. They can move it down if they have. They make the school is 10 feet off the street. Then that would be what y'all have to decide.
Yeah, I think we could say that the applicant is allowed to move the garage structure several feet if necessary, just so long as that movement does not go any further into the encroachment. We're having more and more variance hearings, and I want to start tacking on our decisions that where we grant the variance, the applicant is granted his variance to do what he wants to do exactly as he has proposed. I don't want people coming behind later and creating a huge mess because they don't follow their own plans.
I agree with that completely. We want them to come one time, wherever they need to be prepared to sit down. If they say, look, we've got a little extra room on the backside that doesn't have an issue with the setback on Boulder Street, and we need to what we put, I think they should have that flexibility. Not, we propose 20 by 20, and they should not be locked with just 20 by 20, as long as it does not prevent any variance activity. It make it smaller, they can make it larger.
Or move it, just so they don't move towards the street.
But they get into the more detailed, contract deals with this, look, you got the room to add on to this back side of the garage. Anything that y'all should not hinder that option.
Right, okay. Let's don't close the factual hearing yet, because as we go through these, we always end up at some discussion and want to ask more questions. We do have to, at some point, close the factual hearing, and I propose that we do it at the conclusion of finding the facts. Any board member have a problem with that? Rather than, we always have to reopen it to answer the questions that we have. Would anybody like to take my checklist and run through the facts?
We would like for you to.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna take me up on that one day. Okay. Variance application 2022-05, the hearing date's October 27th, 2022. The members participating, I will fill in later. The applicant is get Mr. Linker's first name. Raymond Linker. The owner of the property in question is, what's the deed say? The owner. So your deed says Raymond and Nola. Lincoln. The address is 31 New River Drive. It was built in the 1980s. And I would say the existing house was built in the 1980s. The property is zoned R15. The applicant wants to do the following, which would violate zoning regulations and which would require a variance. Wants to build a garage, which would require a 20-foot encroachment variance toward, is it the street right of way? Runs towards the street right of way. The garage we'll strike it. Let's move on. The Blowing Rock zoning code ordinance, which is at issue here and which stands in the applicant's way, is give me the number. I don't have it. It's, looks like it's 16-12.4. The setback.
-12.4.
16-4. To put it into words, the ordinance requires a setback of 30 feet from the street right of way. There are not other parties withstanding to come into this case in hearing, and the other parties, period. The applicant did provide drawings or sketches or plans or pictures illustrating what the applicant wants to do. The town of Blowing Rock has provided and given all necessary legal notices of this case in this hearing. There was proper notice of this case and hearing given to all property owners with property abutting the parcel of land which is an issue here, and proper notice was given to any other persons entitled to receive notice. the applicant did receive a copy of the planning director's, of the zoning enforcement officers staff report prior to the hearing. There were not, there were other witnesses in the hearing besides the applicant and the planning director. And that witness was Noah Lincoln. Turning the page. What the applicant is proposing would not impair emergency vehicles such as fire trucks and ambulances. What the applicant is proposing would not create a fire hazard. What the applicant is proposing would not block or impede visibility on any street or highway. What the applicant is proposing would not be contrary to public health or safety. Unique features of the property include the lot is very steep. Other than in the location of the existing house and proposed garage location. The overall lot is shaped like an arrowhead. I'm sorry. It is. When I saw it, I thought this is interesting. Back at the beginning, when I talked about the house being built in the 1980s, I'm going to add that the Linkers bought the property in 2021. Board members, this is a pretty unique property. Anybody else have anything to add in the list of unique features of this lot? No? Okay, on. Let me go ahead and move now that we close the evidentiary hearing. Make that motion. Is there a second? And Ms. Still and Ms. Murphy both seconded it. All those in favor of closing the evidentiary hearing, say aye. 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 It's unanimous. And I will now make a motion that the board adopt the findings of fact that we just went through and I articulated. Is there a second for that? Dr. Rockamore has seconded that. All those in favor of adopting the factual findings as we just went through them, say aye. Aye. It's unanimous. So we did adopt those facts. We're going to move to the conclusions of law. And I think the board members are pretty familiar by now with the 4 factors that Mr. Linker's going to have met to get his variance. Is there any further discussion on any of them that any board member would like to take over? Hearing none, I will proceed through them. As we've said in the past, we go to each factor of the 4 factors and we phrase it in a motion. The board we don't phrase it in a motion. The board, I have to phrase it. The board does or does not find that they have met this. We have to pick one or the other. So we'll go through it and say, and they find that they have presented sufficient evidence to meet that factor. And if a board member feels like, no, they haven't, the board member will just say no when we move to a motion. So turning to number 1, first factor. Based upon the evidence presented and the facts shown above, the Board of Adjustment finds substantial material and competent evidence exists to conclude that in this case, unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of the regulation. I make that motion that we find that. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Schiller. And all those in favor of finding that the applicant has produced sufficient evidence to conclude an unnecessary hardship would result, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. And just to give a couple of concrete reasons why I'm going to say the applicant wants a garage to more fully enjoy living in their home. And the proposed garage location is the only realistic place to put a garage. And that would require this variance. Turning to the next factor, based upon the evidence presented and the facts shown, the Board of Adjustment finds substantial, material, and competent evidence exists to conclude that in this case, the hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property. I move that we find that the hardship did come from conditions peculiar to the property. Is there a second? Mr. Rockamore, Dr. Rockamore has seconded it. All those in favor of finding that applicant Linker has met his burden of producing evidence that the hardship results from conditions peculiar to the property, say aye. Aye. It's unanimous. And I'm going to say same conditions recited earlier. As to the steepness of the line would apply here. Based upon the evidence presented and the facts shown, the Board of Adjustment finds substantial material competent evidence exists to conclude that in this case, the hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or property owner. I make that motion that we find that. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Starnes. All in favor of finding that the applicant has met their burden to show that the hardship did not result from their actions taken by them, say aye. Aye. It's unanimous. And I'm going to say the applicant bought the property in 2021, and the existing house was already there. And applicant had nothing to do with the siting of the existing home. Based upon the evidence presented and the facts shown, the Board of Adjustment finds substantial material and competent evidence exists to conclude that in this case, the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the regulation, such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. I make that motion. Is there a second? And Mr. Starnes beat Mr. Shore again, seconded by Mr. Starnes. All those in favor of finding that they have met their burden of producing evidence such that showing that the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the regulations such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It is unanimous. And this is the factor where harm to the neighbors would come in. If a neighbor had come in and expressed realistic harm to his property because of what would happen if we granted this variance. No neighbor objected. No evidence was presented showing safety would be affected. And substantial justice not achieved. Board of Adjustment does grant the applicant a variance to take the actions stated in the facts, meaning the building of a garage, as described in applicant's application and accompanying materials. And applicant is granted a 20-foot variance to the encroachment to the street right of way.
Do we need to clarify including the roof overhang, or is that understood?
Yeah, I'm just, yeah, we got to do that. So make it clear, we're granting the applicant a variance to take the actions stated in the application. Meaning to building a garage as described in the applicant's application and accompanying materials. An applicant is granted a 20-foot variance into the encroachment. Let me change that into the setback to the street right of way. Now, the next conclusion of law. The applicant shall be allowed to move the exact site location of the proposed garage several feet
Right.
yes, away from the setback so long as the adjusted location of the garage, including roof overhang, gets no closer to the street right of way than what applicant has asked for. Meaning 20-foot variance. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Anybody think we ought to add or change it?
I think that's
Okay. This decision is effective upon filing with the clerk. The Board of Adjustment did adopt the above listed conclusions of law by, I move that we adopt these conclusions of law as just recited. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Murphy. Seconded by Ms. Murphy. All those in favor of adopting these conclusions of law, say aye. Aye. Aye, it's unanimous. So, Mr. Linker, you got your variance. Do you have any questions about what we said about you can move the building? You just can't get any closer to the street. Okay, all right, thank you very much. That concludes the Linker hearing. Let's move to Mr. Buxton's case. Yep.
You too.
What's that? Jeannie. She even claims. I have the chair.
Yeah. Yep, let's take a 10-minute break.
Zoom. I appreciate it.
It's quite all right. Okay. The next hearing for the Blowing Rock Board of Adjustment is the Barry and Lynn Buxton case. It is variance number 2022-06. And Mr. Buxton, the minutes are going to be held by Ms. Taylor Miller, who is here. She works for the town. She actually works for the zoning and inspection department. She's our clerk. We think she does a good job. You object
I
to-
know her well.
Okay, you don't object to her keeping our minute?
No, sir.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, do you object to Ms. Miller keeping our minutes? Very good. And I need to tell all the parties the procedures we're going to follow in this hearing. This hearing is a quasi judicial hearing. It is conducted according to the rules and laws pertaining to quasi judicial hearings. It will have all of the essential elements of a fair trial. Parties will have the opportunity to give evidence, cross-examine witnesses, inspect documents, and testimony shall be under oath. The board's findings will be based upon substantial, material, and competent evidence. Fellow board members, does anyone have any family or business or other relationship with this case, the property, or the Buxton such that you should not serve? Anybody have any conflicts? No conflicts from anyone, including myself. Has anyone had any ex parte conversations about this case prior to this hearing, outside the hearing? Anyone? No one has, including myself. We are allowed to drive, walk, go by in some fashion the property in this case, just to see it. Of course, we can't stop and talk to people about it, but we're allowed to go by it prior to the hearing. Has any board member gone by the property and looked at it? Yeah. And all board members, including myself, have. Is there anyone in this room or on Zoom who thinks he has standing to come into this case as a party? Anyone out there that feels like they have standing to enter this case as a party? I hear none. Mr. Johnson, did you get contact from anyone that wanted to be a witness in this case by way of Zoom or regular telephone?
No, sir.
All right, at this time, Ms. Miller is going to swear all the witnesses in this case. Listen to the clerk, Mr. Buxton. She's going to swear you in. Ready?
All right.
Swear that the evidence you shall give to this body in this matter being heard shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Now, fellow board members, have each of you received the staff report from the zoning enforcement officer on this case prior to the hearing? All of us have. And Mr. Buxton, did you receive the staff report from Brian Johnson prior to this hearing?
Yes, sir, I did.
Is there anything about his report, his write-up, what you got from him that you object to?
No, sir. No objections.
Okay. We're going to start out with Mr. Johnson giving his understanding of the case and showing us the pictures and drawings that he has, probably supplied by you. So, Mr. Buxton, listen to what Mr. Johnson has to tell us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Second case we got before us, variance 2022-06. Aaron Lynn Buxton. Location of the variance is 110 Blackberry Lane, and it is zoned R15 single family. Barry and Lynn Buxton are requesting a street setback variance of 12 feet from the applicable 30-foot street setback to enclose an existing carport. Closest point of the existing carport to be modified is 18 feet from the street right of way. Again, property located at 110 Blackberry Lane, further identified by Watauga County PIN number 2817-64-1046-000. Motion to request a 12-foot encroachment into the 30-foot street setback to enclose an existing carport. The existing carport has 8 posts and a gabled roof. The applicant is proposing to frame walls between the posts under the existing carport to enclose it and add a garage door to the front west elevation facing the street. All work will be within the existing carport footprint and is proposed to match the existing residence. Again, the closest point of the existing carport to be modified as it exists now is 18 feet from the street right of way. Again, as previously stated in the previous case, we've got an existing carport which is non-conforming. The carport is existing, encroaches into the street setback. So the addition of the exterior walls, while not physically going outside the footprint, per ordinance is based on basically it's an expansion of the density, an expansion of the structure itself. Also to be noted, it's kind of a rare case with this street. There's actually a 40-foot right of way, which is unusual for smaller streets here. So that is quite a bit of encroachment on back towards Mr. Buxton's property. We'll go through 2 pages. You've got the application for Mr. Buxton. Next page, we'll have an aerial showing Mr. Buxton's property and the location of his house. The next page is a site plan showing the house and the existing carport. If you can look on the site plan itself there, Blackberry Lane, you can see the closest point being 18 feet. That 18 feet goes to Mr. Buxton's property line, or that's where the 40-foot right-of-way comes to. And if you look at the next line above, that's actually, okay. If
Feet 18 feet.
yeah, if you go to the 18 feet where it's coming from the garage, that's the actual 40-foot right-of-way of Mr. Buxton's property line. You extend beyond that to the next line, that's the actual asphalt edge of pavement. So you can see how much the 40-foot right-of-way comes down into his property there.
And the town code was later changed to 30.
We have varied right-of-ways on all town streets. But this one actually happens to be a 40-foot right-of-way. Typical right-of-ways are 30 feet, 15 from center. The next page you've got is a photo of the proposed elevations showing the garage being enclosed. And if you want to look at this in reference back to the site plan there, if you look to the right of the elevation, it shows an existing walkway that's beside the carport. The plan is to not enclose that portion, but leave it as an open walkway to the front door of the house. So it shows you what's just going to be enclosed as a single car garage there. And then the next picture is a blown up architectural plan showing the enclosed portion of the garage with the garage door. It looks like Mr. Buxton's going to propose also a door out the side onto that covered walkway. Next page is the packet is the applicable sections, the variance is being requested from. Again, the required setback in this R15 zone is 30 feet from the street, 12 from the sides. If you look at the site plan again, he meets the side setback. He's 17 feet from the side setback. So it's not an issue, just the front. And as we navigate through, we've got several pictures that Mr. Buxton has provided us showing some photos from the street, looking at the front of the carport, existing carport. He's got a couple of pictures showing the property as a whole there from various angles on. Be glad to answer any questions.
Mr. Buxton, do you have any questions of Mr. Johnson?
No, sir, the staff's been very helpful to me at every step of the process.
Board members, any questions of Mr. Johnson? Mr. Johnson, will you put up the lot flat issue?
I don't know if I don't have those online.
You pretty certain you can't?
Give me about 2 or 3 minutes. I think.
Well, do you have a copy, paper copy?
Yes.
All board members see what I'm looking at? I'm still stuck on the 40 feet. I still don't understand it, and I want to understand it. perfectly.
Barry, we're looking at your site plan.
Because I don't see 40 anywhere. I see 40 in the code
It's not labeled.
for street center line to a totally different zoning. You know, R6 and R.
So the 18 feet, that's the edge of the 40-foot right of way is property line. So
The 40, that's one end of the 40. Where's the other end?
this is the edge of this. This is the existing street. It's that edge thing.
Yeah, yeah.
50 to 30 foot would be.
The 40 has nothing to do with him. He's 30, right? He's 30 from the right.
He has a 30-foot building,
Yes.
which is a 40-foot right of way on the road. That's this line right here, which is pushing way below what the existing pavement is.
Still not in this. Does anybody else?
Is that 20 feet from the center line?
Yes, from the center line we talked.
Those shift and vary some. Most of our streets are 30-foot right of ways. 15 from the center each side. Now it can vary depending on where the center of the street is. There's an intersection where Mr. Buxton's house is. One street has a 30-foot right of way, one has a 40-foot, one has a 50-foot right of way there. We don't know why. But there's a 40-foot right of way in front of his house, which extends down, and that's where his property happens to begin and start. That's the line. It's the line you're seeing. That's his property. That's the right of way. Why there's a 40-foot right of way?
Okay.
Really doesn't know, because we're just looking at the
No,
edge.
it's just, he has to pull his setback from the 40.
Okay. Would you,
Anything else I
can
can
you make in your staff report a part of the record
Yes.
of this hearing? So be it. Mr. Buxton, any more questions? Of Mr.
Questions?
Of Mr. Johnson?
Mr. Johnson, no, sir.
Okay.
No questions.
All right. Well, we're ready for you to tell us anything you need to tell us, Mr. Buxton.
Well, thank you, sir. First of all, and I thought perhaps most important, was communication with our neighbors. I went over and met with Michael and Margaret Gillespie, who live directly across from us, and they were supportive of what we had proposed to do in closing the carport. I met with Fred and Lynn Mabry, who are also across the street, and they were very supportive. I met with George and Betsy Wilcox, who live up above us, and they were supportive. I met with Bill and Pam Peralt, who live actually slightly below us, and they were supportive. We talked to Debbie and David Brenner, who live up on Green Hill Circle, and they were supportive. I talked to Jim and Sue Doolin, who live below us on Blackberry Lane, and they were all supportive. I talked to Barbara Cash, who lives up above us on Green Hill Circle, and she was supportive. So we were trying to do some good communication with neighbors and due diligence to make sure everybody understood the scope of what we wanted to do. And And I actually took the picture the rendering that Sammy Greason had done back in the day and shared that with them. So at any rate, that is information that I wanted to share with you. And I think you understand the scope of the project and would try to answer any questions that I may.
Any board member have anything?
Pretty straightforward.
Mr. Buxton, in the last hearing we did, a roof overhang became a hot topic. Are you changing the roof of this carport at all?
No, sir, no change in the roof at all. All of the enclosed space fits inside of the existing carport structure by about, Brian, you may jump in on this, but I believe we measured it about 2 feet inside the overhang, the roof overhang.
Okay. That's correct. Okay, anything else you want to tell us?
No, sir.
Okay. Let me go back to Mr. Johnson because I have forgotten to get the evidence of notice.
I would have reminded.
And it's embarrassing. So let's talk about notices, Mr. Johnson. Have you made all the necessary notices to the public of this case and of this hearing?
Yes, sir.
Did you mail notices of this hearing to Mr. Buxton, the applicant?
Yes, sir.
And did you give mail notices to the nearby property owners?
We notified 12 property owners within 150 feet.
Don't tell us what anyone said, that would be hearsay, but did you hear from any of those 12?
No, sir, we did not.
Did you hear from anybody one way or another on this case?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. I tell you what, while I've got you, let's go to one else. Have you been out to this site and seen where the carport is located?
Yes, sir.
Proposed garage would go?
Yes, sir.
Did it appear to you that anything about what he would do, would it impair emergency vehicles such as fire trucks and ambulances?
No, sir.
And did it appear that what he was proposing would create a fire hazard of any kind?
No, sir.
Did it appear to you that what Mr. Buxton was proposing would block or impede visibility on any street or highway?
No, sir.
And did it appear to you that what he was doing would or would not be contrary to public health or safety?
No, sir.
Would not be? All right, thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anybody have any more questions? Okay. Let's move on to our findings of fact.
Any more clarifications on the right of way?
No, I still don't understand it, but I think we're okay.
What can I do to help clarify?
I don't know. I'm just, I'm satisfied there's nothing about it that could.
If you look at that property line, that's where the right of way is at. Then if you look down below, you'll see it's 30-foot building setback. See? That's where he's encroaching 12 feet into that existing.
See.
Okay.
I just don't know whether.
There's just a big right of way there.
I don't know the beginning and the ends of the 40.
Well, the beginning of it's right there where his property line is,
And it goes where?
to the other side. That'll be on the other side of the street.
On the other side of the street, away from his house?
Yeah, most roads from the center of the street.
Yes.
You've got 30 feet, 15 on this side, 15 on this side, each travel.
Okay.
This one's got 20 and 20.
Okay.
That's a public right of way for the street.
Okay.
Was that the code at the time?
Pardon?
Was that the code at the time?
No, it's not. Street right of ways are typically not based on code unless if they're new streets. Yeah, we do have certain right of ways apply to. But if they're existing streets, sometimes right of ways is varied. Some of them we don't have right of ways on. We determine maybe from street edge to street edge.
Okay.
that's a public. Now, you can have a right of way sometimes that falls short of a property line, or sometimes they can go past the property line. But Mr. Buxton starts right where that right of way is. That's where we start to set, is from that right of way. If we don't have a determinable right of way, that's where we go to the center of the street. We would pull 15 from the center of the street, that would be his setback. In this case, it would be 20 because it's a 40% setback.
Okay, all right. I'm not going to close the evidentiary here. We may have some questions that come up. We'll wait and close it at the end of the findings of fact. Would somebody like to run through using the checklist, the findings of fact?
I'd like you to do.
You're far more.
If you start making mistakes, somebody will tell me, but I have a feeling you're gonna do it just.
Okay. This is variance application number 2022-06. The hearing date is October 27, 2022. I'll fill in later the board members participating. The applicant is Barry and Lynn Buxton. And Mr. Buxton, you're the owner of the property as well?
Yes, we are.
How does the deed read? What names are on the deed?
The deed reads Lynn Boyd, B-O-Y-D.
Just the one name?
That's correct.
Okay, I'm speaking to Barry Buxton. So are you acting on behalf of Lynn Boyd? Tell me about your relationship with Lynn Boyd. Is that your wife?
She is my wife. She's sitting here with me if you want to speak to her.
No, I'll take your word for it. That's your wife. She's the owner of the property. Are you acting on her behalf?
Yes.
You don't get to talk, Ms. Buxton. You're not sworn. The address of the property in question is 110 Blackberry Lane, Rolling Rock. And Mr. Buxton, do you know when the house was built?
Yeah, built in the 1960s.
Okay, and when did you buy, well, when did Lynn Boyd buy the house?
Lynn, 2013.
Okay. The property's zone R15. The applicant wants to do the following, which would violate zoning regulations and which would require a variance. Applicant wants to close an existing carport which is closer to the street right of way than allowed by Blowing Rock Town Code. The house and carport were built prior to the existing town code. Applicant needs a 12-foot variance into the 30-foot, it's 30 foot. Yeah, into the 30-foot street setback. In order to enclose the existing car. the Blowing Rock zoning code ordinance section, which is at issue here and which stands in the applicant's way, is 16-12.4. Put it into words, the ordinance requires a 30-foot setback from the street right of way for any construction. Other parties are standing to come into this case. The applicant did provide drawings or sketches or plans or pictures illustrating what the applicant wants to do. The town of Blowing Rock has provided and given all necessary legal notices of this case and this hearing. There was proper notice of this case and hearing given to all property owners with property near parcel of land which is at issue here, and proper notice was given to any other person entitled to receive notice. Notices were mailed to 12 nearby property owners. The applicant did receive a copy of the zoning enforcement officer staff report. There were not other witnesses in the hearing besides the applicant and the zoning enforcement officer. What the applicant is proposing would not impair emergency vehicles such as fire trucks and ambulances, and what the applicant is proposing would not create a fire hazard. What the applicant is proposing would not block or impede visibility on any street or highway. What the applicant is proposing would not be contrary to public health or safety. Unique features of this property include, I would say it's unique in that applicant does not want to build an entirely new structure, but merely wants to enclose carport built in the 1960s. Anybody have any other factual or anything unique about this property other than the carport already existed? All right, I make a motion that, first of all, I make a motion that we close the evidentiary hearing. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Schiller. All in favor of closing the evidentiary hearing, say aye. Aye. It's unanimous. And I make a motion that we accept the findings of fact as I just recited them. Is there a second?
Second.
Dr. Rockamore seconded. All those in favor of adopting the findings of fact as we just stated them, say aye. 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 It's unanimous. So those are the facts. Moving on to conclusions of the law. I think we're all fairly familiar with the 4 factors that Mr. Buxton needs to meet in order to get his variance. Is there any factor any board member wants to discuss at this time? All right, we'll move on to the 4 factors. We'll phrase this. We either have to phrase it, Mr. Buxton has met his burden or he has not, and then we'll take a vote on each of them. I'm going to say to begin with, he has met his burden of evidence. And if a board member feels like he hadn't, then when we do the motion, the board member would simply say nay, that they do not agree. So The first one is, based upon the evidence presented and the facts shown, the Board of Adjustment finds substantial material and competent evidence exists to conclude that in this case, unnecessary hardship would result from a strict application of the regulation. All those in favor of finding that he has met his burden, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. On that one, based upon the evidence presented and the facts shown above, the Board of Adjustment finds substantial material and competent evidence exists to conclude that in this case, the hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the party. I make that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Rockamore. All those in favor of finding that he has met his burden of presenting evidence that the hardship he faces results from conditions peculiar to the property, say aye. Aye. It's unanimous. Moving on. The next factor, based upon the evidence presented and facts shown, the Board of Adjustment finds substantial material and competent evidence exists to conclude that in this case, the hardship did not result taken from actions taken by the applicant or owner. I'm going to add that the owner of the property acquired the property in question in 2013.
2013.
2013. And the existing carport to be enclosed was built in the 1960s. I make a motion to find that he has met his burden of producing evidence that the hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or the owner of the property. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Mr. Starnes, seconded. All those in favor of finding that the applicant has met his burden on that factor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Moving to the last factor, based upon the evidence presented and the facts shown, the Board of Adjustment finds substantial material and competent evidence exists to conclude that in this case, the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the regulation, such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. I personally think the carport will look more attractive aesthetically once it's enclosed. Anybody dispute that?
Yes.
And I think we're entitled to make a subjective conclusion like that. Since we're all agreed, if no one objects, I'm going to say it appears from applicant's application package and drawings that the new enclosed carport, now garage, would be more attractive in appearance than the existing carport. All right, I make a motion that we find that he has met his burden of producing evidence such that what he's proposing would not, such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. Do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Second by Ms. Murphy. All those in favor that he's met his burden of evidence in showing that the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the regulation, such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved, say aye. It is unanimous. And the Board of Adjustment does grant the applicant a variance to take the actions stated in his application package and its diagrams, drawings, and plats. The applicant must follow his own described additions. So you understand, Mr. Buxton, you got to follow what you're asking for. You can't get creative. You can't blow the roof off and put an apartment over.
Mr. Chairman, I understand perfectly, and may I just say I've never observed the Board of Adjustments before, but I want to express my gratitude as a citizen of Boiling Rock to you and the other members for your service to our community. I know it's a lot of time and effort, but we are grateful.
Well, we appreciate those kind words, and it is some trouble. We don't get paid anything. You know, every now and then it's a pain in the neck to come up here on this Thursday night, but we're glad to do it. And I think like you, we all enjoy living in Boiling Rock.
There you go.
All right.
Amen.
So let me wrap it up. This decision is effective upon filing with the clerk. The Board of Adjustment did adopt the above conclusions of law. And I make a motion that this board do adopt the conclusions of law as stated. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Still. All those in favor of adopting our conclusions of law as we just stated, say aye. Aye. Aye, it's unanimous. So, Mr. Buxton, you got your variance. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I make a motion that we wrap up this meeting of the Boiling Rock Board of Adjustment.
A second.
All those in favor say aye. 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 It's unanimous, so we have concluded for this evening, and thank you, everyone.